It is forbidden to enter the uncontacted areas in the Amazon rainforest. But every now and then, an explorer or researcher goes there. And in 1926, an expedition went into the jungle that would change everything. This story is based on actual events that took place in the Amazon rainforest. But before we start this story, please take a second to support us so that we can keep making these videos. Now let's go. Deep within the Amazon rainforest, sunlight has trouble reaching the ground. Even during the day, shadows are cast by the thick canopy above, muffling the noises of the outside world. In the distance, strange calls can be heard echoing through the ancient trees. Here the trees seem to watch you as you pass by. Every bend in the path brings something new and exciting, but some say there is something even more dangerous than the plants here. Something evil still lurks in this place, waiting for anyone who dares disturb its ancient slumber. It is here that legends come alive and fears are realized. In the deepest parts of the rainforest, where jaguars prowl and macaws squawk, there is a creature that has been spoken of in hushed voices around campfires for generations. The Mapinguari, also known as the Mapinguari, or the Lord of the Forest. The very name sends shivers down the spines of those who hear it, for it is said to be a terrifying beast that preys on those who enter its domain. Some say it is a hairy monster with glowing red eyes and a gaping maw filled with sharp teeth. Others say it is a giant sloth that has been cursed to roam the forest for eternity. Whatever its form, all agree that it is a spirit of evil, a harbinger of death and destruction, a force of nature that must be avoided at all costs. In the folklore of the Amazon basin, the Mapinguari is said to be the guardian of the forest, a spirit of great power that protects the rainforest and its inhabitants from harm, but it is a being of immense size and strength, capable of crushing trees and boulders with ease. Its fur is said to be as thick and impenetrable as armor, and its claws are as sharp as knives. And yet, despite its fearsome appearance, the Mapinguari is revered by many of the indigenous tribes as a sacred animal, a symbol of the untamed wilderness that surrounds them. For the Mapinguari is not just a creature of myth and legend. It is a living embodiment of the forest itself, a reminder that there are forces at work in the natural world that are beyond our understanding. It was the year 1926 when a group of explorers decided to venture into the uncharted territories of the Amazon rainforest. Among them was an experienced forest guide named Jose, who had spent most of his life among the dense foliage and murky waters of the jungle. He knew its secrets and its dangers and had never ventured so deep into the forest. They were accompanied by two researchers who were eager to document any new species they might find in the area. Little did they know that they were about to make a discovery that would change their lives forever. As the group pushed deeper and deeper into the forest, the air grew heavy and the sounds of the jungle seemed to intensify. Strange calls echoed around them, and the thick canopy above them made it difficult to navigate. Just when their supplies were beginning to dwindle and their spirits were starting to flag, they stumbled upon a clearing, and in the middle of the clearing stood a towering tree unlike any they had seen before. Its bark was covered in strange markings, and its branches seemed to reach out towards the sky like grasping claws. According to local legend, this was the home of the Mapinguari, the mythical creature that had been said to dwell in the forest. Before they knew it, night had fallen and they had no choice but to make camp beside the tree. As the fire crackled and popped, casting flickering shadows around them, the explorers shared stories and jokes to keep their spirits up, but even their laughter couldn't dispel the feeling of unease that had settled over them. Suddenly, a guttural roar echoed through the forest, sending chills down their spines. The sound was unlike anything they had ever heard before, a terrifying blend of a jaguar's growl and a gorilla's scream. They huddled closer around the fire, their eyes wide with fear as the sound seemed to come closer and closer. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. In the morning after, they decided to continue their journey. But Jose, the guide, was hesitant. He had never felt so uneasy in the forest before, and he could unshake off the feeling that they were being watched. As they moved through the thick undergrowth, Jose suddenly stopped. He had heard a noise, a sound that had sent a shiver down his spine. Quickly, he motioned to the others to follow him. As he disappeared into the thick foliage, pushing aside the vines and leaves, he found a small opening and gasped at what he saw before him. There in front of him was a clearing, but it was not just any clearing. It was the same clearing where they had camped the night before, and in the center of the clearing stood the same towering tree with its strange markings. But that was not what had caught his eye. What had made him stop in his tracks was the sight of a large creature standing beside the tree. It was hunched over, as if in a meditative pose, its back to them. It was covered in a thick coat of reddish hair that fell to the ground around it. Its head was bowed, and Jose could see the outline of its face, which was pale and gaunt, with sharp features and glowing red eyes. He had only caught a glimpse of the creature, but he knew what he had seen. This was the Mapinguari, the mythical forest spirit that had been spoken of in hushed tones around jungle campfires for generations. Jose had always dismissed the stories as folklore, but now he wasn't so sure. As he stood there watching the creature, he could feel the power and presence of the forest all around him. He understood that he was in the presence of something truly ancient and powerful. The researchers were skeptical, but Jose insisted that they needed to leave the area as soon as possible. They didn't want to risk angering the Mapinguari further. As they made their way back to their camp, Jose couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. He had never felt so vulnerable in the forest. As they hurried along, the forest seemed to close in around them, the trees looming over them like silent sentinels. The air grew heavy and the sounds of the jungle seemed to amplify, making it difficult to focus on the task at hand. The researchers argued amongst themselves, unable to agree on what to do next. Some wanted to stay and investigate further, while others wanted to flee the area as fast as possible. Jose remained silent, his mind racing. He knew that they needed to make a decision quickly. Finally, they emerged from the trees and saw their camp in the distance. Relief washed over them, and they quickened their pace, eager to reach the safety of their camp. But as they approached, they noticed that something was wrong. Their supplies were scattered around the clearing, and their tents were torn and empty. The fire that had been burning merrily the night before was now a pile of cold ashes. It was clear that someone or something had been here in the middle of the night. Jose and the researchers exchanged uneasy glances. Their worst fears had been confirmed. The Mapinguari had not been happy with their presence in its domain. They had angered the forest spirit, and now they were paying the price. Jose knew that they could not stay in the forest any longer. They had to get out of there as fast as they could. Without saying a word, he turned and ran, crashing through the undergrowth, not daring to look back. As he ran, he could hear the sound of the forest coming alive around him. Vines and trees seemed to reach out towards him, trying to grab him and pull him down. The air grew heavy and the sounds of the jungle intensified, making it hard to breathe. Jose pushed on, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the presence of the forest closing in around him, and he knew that if he didn't get out, he would be lost forever. Finally, he burst out of the trees and collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. He had escaped the clutches of the forest, but he knew that he had been forever changed by his experience. Now, as the sun sets over the horizon, casting long shadows over the jungle floor, a lone figure emerges from the thick undergrowth. It is the Mapinguari, the mythical forest spirit. With its thick coat of reddish hair and piercing red eyes, it moves with an otherworldly grace, its presence commanding respect and fear in equal measure. It lets out a guttural roar that echoes through the trees, a sound that strikes terror into the hearts of all who hear it. The Mapinguari is a reminder of the raw power of the natural world and the ancient forces that lie dormant within it. As it disappears back into the thick foliage, one thing is clear: the forest is a place of mystery and magic, and those who enter it do so at their own risk. The researchers later claim to have seen the Mapinguari, but nobody knows for sure. Some say it is nothing but a myth. But why would Hosa run away? And why were their camps destroyed? There are several theories, but the truth is, nobody really knows. The indigenous people believe it is the guardian of the forest, and that it still lives in the uncontacted areas of the Amazon. The question is, do you believe them? Here you can see the creature again. It is slowly turning to us. What do you think? Is this a myth or is it real? We don't know. But deep in the Amazon, some things are best left undisturbed. Thanks for watching. See you next time.